Alright, y'all, man. Kicking it with Liam Anthony. Stepping straight into the world of art, right? Now, I've heard this question before, right? Can we separate the art from the artist? Can we, separate the creation from the creator? I mean, the fact that these two things are defined, using two different terms. Artist, art. Artist, art. I mean, yes, the art is the derivative from the artist. But, the fact that these are defined in these two separate terms, creator, creation, there must be a difference there, right? And I guess we're here to break that down. Let's get into that.
Just to me, free the magazine to dump on enemies. Cause buddy, you can't do me wrong, then live to tell the reasons. I mean, this shit ain't sweet pea till life humble me from the sea. Yeah, mercurial blood vessels, my skin do shine. The sun of the god of thunder, my home is the skies. The art of arguing niggas.
Okay, alright, part 2 with it. I could get to my freaking window, my screen. Right? Okay. Alright. Okay. Alright. Can we separate the art from the artist? Right? Liam Anthony, the creator. Right? Actually, it's a Ye video because breaking down Kanye. Man, you gotta make this into a series where, Kanye West. I mean, we're at a point where we're breaking down the fact that, right, from the early 2000s and his earlier projects, him being, being somebody who compartmentalized, his art and his real life pretty well, pushed the intention for the music and the business and the success, commercial success, right? Being a success, successful as it was, right? And knowing what was going on also, well, with him exposing also what was going on in his personal life, right? These were different worlds. Now they went on to become inseparable, you know what I'm saying? And so I think we're at a 2013 to 2016 version of Kanye West right now, you know what I'm saying? Well, in the breakdown of this video. So yeah, that's where we at, you know what I'm saying? So, but then again, as I'm trying to say, this is Kanye West though. Wishing that this could probably turn into a series, where you break down artists that maybe did the vice versa, where they was their life, their personal life and their music was like inseparable, and then they went on to just like be mysterious artists where you only hear about the music, you know what I'm saying? Do you think there's a case like that? Put that in the comments if you feel like there was a case where like the art and the artist were together, and then as time moved they became like separate things, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. I feel like Drake might be one of that. Drake might be one of those, you know what I'm saying, where his life and situations at home with his mother and things like that, you know what I'm saying, his dad, relationship with his family, they were deeply in the music and consciously, let me put it that way, right? Consciously in the music. You could tell that it was a conscious thing that he was doing, until it became about, come on, man, Champagne Poppy. You feel what I'm saying? Popping his shit, you know what I'm saying? Just like just being about the life of the material, you know what I'm saying? And just like being this ego. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's just an example, man. Let's get into this.
He's much more of a classic celebrity, removed from reality and almost resembling a statue of himself.
Yep.
Obsessed with saying the most outlandish things possible just to get attention and then convincing people he's worth listening to. But by December of 2015, Kanye had become a father of 2 children with Kim Kardashian.
Yeah.
And Cudi, the man who recorded Kanye's early career, attributed that as to the reason why this happened, but the two reconnected in late 2015, shortly after the birth of his kids. And during this period of clarity is when Cudi took the famous video of the reveal event for the life of Pablo and the new Yeezy clothing line. And after that teaser show, a few name changes, and a very brief exclusive release on Tidal, The Life of Pablo.
And another thing, I feel like this is when his rollout started to become experimental, right? Having like setting release dates for the project and then coming back and pushing that release date forward and be like, nah, that's not the version. Now we have the remastered version, or you know, the version with like changes within the hooks, and you know, the verses, most of the verses are changed, and so here's the official date now. It's no longer that. And then, you know, the whole project comes through like changed up as fuck, and certain artists are not there no more, and you know, like, come on, bro. Putting out projects with little devices to listen to. It's like the rollouts were becoming more and more experimental, right? I know a whole lot of y'all would agree with that, bro. Like that yay though, you know.
Did eventually release and debut at #1 on Billboard again. This album, unlike Yeezus, did very well in the court of public opinion, as it's much more friendly and consumable than some of his previous work. The subject matter of the album was mostly Kanye's interpretation of the gospel, family issues that he's had, and, once again, his celebrity lifestyle. The Life of Pablo also featured some of the biggest pop artists of the time and has much more pop-focused production. This appeared to be a commercial return to form for West. The problem is, his defense of Bill Cosby, his performance in Kazakhstan, his disrespect towards Beck, or any of this other stuff, it still kind of makes me feel uneasy. At the very least, it feels wrong to sit here and watch and listen to this person like a zoo animal, knowing everything that's happened. And it's easy to assume that's kind of how Kanye felt, like a massive human spectacle. Because, unfortunately, those feelings spilled into the music, and it's pretty clear. Kanye himself made it very hard not to think of his ideas or his actions while listening to this album. For example, on Saint Pablo, Kanye takes time to talk about his controversial Twitter history and talks about whether or not people think he's losing his mind. Knowing that at the time he was very much testing the limits of his celebrity status, it makes these weird lines stand out a lot more. And things would really only get worse in the coming months. In June of 2016, Kanye would find himself in another controversy with other celebrities. The song Famous, off The Life of Pablo, featuring Rihanna, had its music video released that summer, and in it, there were wax depictions of multiple famous people, and they were all naked in a bed together. Among those wax figures, there were depictions of George W. Bush, Donald Trump, Caitlyn Jenner, Chris Brown, and Taylor Swift. This was obviously not received very well by the media, and it was really only made worse because there was an ongoing debate about whether or not Taylor Swift had signed off on a specific line from the song that referenced her. Kanye said that she agreed to have it in the song, and Kim Kardashian released a video of Taylor Swift appearing to agree to it, but later context for that video would reveal that Taylor Swift did not, in fact, know about the line in question.
Immediately, was it AI then?
Off the back of The Life of Pablo, this was not the kind of controversy that Kanye needed, especially considering he was gearing up for his biggest tour yet. The Saint Pablo tour was planned to start in August of 2016 and end in December of 2016, and it was supposed to be Kanye's most impressive tour yet. First of all was the first of its kind floating stage that had lights on the sides and bottom that had programming based on the show. Secondly, the hype that this tour had was monstrous. The Yeezus tour was a similarly massive spectacle, but with the added showmanship this time, people everywhere were waiting with bated.
Bro, look at that, bro. Like, the images of these shows themselves are like gallery worthy. You know what I'm saying? Like, frame them, put them in a gallery, man. Art, like Yay art museum or some shit.
Breath to see what kind of creative shows Kanye would put on. And last but not least, this tour was supposed to run for 5 whole months, which, considering all the prep and technology required for these shows, is pretty impressive. There was a decent chance, even if you didn't live anywhere near a major city, that you would be able to see Kanye West in his supposed prime. But none of this panned out correctly, as you might expect. On October 2nd of 2016, Kanye had to cut a show short due to what he told the audience was a family emergency. His wife, Kim K, was being held at gunpoint in Paris, and he rushed over there to make sure everything was okay and deal with the
I think I remember this story.
Aftermath. This, while tragic, is the definition of shit happens. This incident would have never been an issue. It was how Kanye dealt with this obstacle and how the rest of the tour went that ended up being kind of problematic. His returning show was 5 days later in his hometown of Chicago. You would expect, with his passionate loyalty to his hometown, that he would make the show an electric one and at least give the audience a unique experience. But the recounting of that show is that he barely spoke to the audience at all, and after it started nearly an hour late, he cut it off early as well. And then, by late November, Kanye started to add weird political intermissions into the shows, and eventually, this started to take over the tour. This came to a point in the California leg of the tour, where in one show, he said that if he had voted, he would have voted for Trump, which led the audience to throw items up at him on his stage. He ranted for almost the entire runtime about politics, social media, other artists, and various bizarre issues before ending the show.
Started to preach. You know what I'm saying? Started to tap into his gift of like preaching. Oh shit, because you know, shortly after that we get the Jesus Kanye, we get the Christian Kanye, right?
Show early. And after those two, all future dates were canceled because of Kanye's declining mental state. The way this tour ended left audiences in outrage, but also in shock. Why is this artist, who was once a mouthpiece for culture and inspired artists everywhere, suddenly making no sense? And making no sense in a way that almost no one could diagnose.
Distasteful way.
Even Snoop Dogg, a man who is familiar with drugs, literally questioned what this man was on. But everything would start to make sense in the coming days. The public would find out on November 21st that Kanye was admitted to UCLA Medical Center because of temporary psychosis due to extreme sleep deprivation and dehydration. It was while there that Kanye was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And that diagnosis explained a lot for a lot of people. His inconsistent and unpredictable nature over the past few years was probably because the man was genuinely in the dark as to how his brain worked. Living with any mental disorder is hard, even if you shit out money and wipe your ass with bank checks. Because we as humans are good at recognizing patterns, and we really like to simplify things for ourselves, many different audiences drew conclusions about Kanye based on these St. Pablo tour incidents and the following mental diagnosis. On one side, there were the people saying that Kanye West is sick, and that nothing he says can be believed or listened to, writing him off as a clinically crazy person. Whether this manifests in sympathy or anger depends on the person and their opinions about the things that he has done. But either way, the sentiment ends up the same. Kanye is sick, please ignore him. And on the other side, there were the people saying not to trust the recounting of these events entirely, and he might not be fully mentally ill. Basically, simplifying all of these events into one mental break / episode, therefore concluding that we don't have to ignore all the things he said, and that he might in fact be a social visionary. Whether you were on either of those sides back then, or you look back and see one of those sides as correct now, doesn't really matter though. At the end of the day, it was just everyone trying to grapple with the idea that, wait, maybe none of this was for attention. Maybe all of this stuff wasn't just a publicity stunt, which is a profound thought because it adds a scary amount of context to some of his more unhinged music. The music.
Yo, let me just interject with this sidebar, right? You know, people have been breaking down a whole lot of these Jeffrey files, right? The Jeff files. I'm gonna go ahead and name them the Jeff files because I don't want to say the whole thing, right? Because of the controversy around the thing. But I remember just recently, you know, a couple days ago, people were breaking down the fact that, yo, he knew something about those files. Yay, that is. He knew something about those files. He knew something connected to people that were in the files, right? Legendary rappers, that, you know, people that are considered legendary rappers, right? That were, you know, attached to these files. You understand what I'm saying? And there's these lines that he spits. I'm trying to remember the song in which he spits these lines, but it's lines that say know some niggas that went to the island. Why the F would you go to that island? So you know what I'm saying? He got like some file knowledge about, you know, about what really happened, some information about these rappers. And now, you know, thinking back on you know, the diagnosis and the whole story around, you know, Ye being diagnosed and just being dismissed as this crazy person, it's just dismiss these kind of details. You know what I'm saying? He may have like sensitive information that literally might, contribute in taking niggas down. And based off of his relationship with these guys, you know what I mean? He can easily just come out. He could easily come out with just like these details, but then, you know, the media having depicted him as this crazy person, dismissing him and shit like that. I feel like that was the whole purpose, to just like kind of put that aside, dismiss that. But then now people are starting to take it seriously. People Where are these lines from, man? Know some niggas that went to the island. When would you go to the island? Like, you know, through. I think it was in one of his recent albums. Maybe Bully. Maybe something like that, right? But people are starting to take it seriously now again, right? I guess that's a quality of his aura, his energy. You feel what I'm saying? Even though he, you know, he's got these diagnoses, like his star is still powerful enough for people to take him seriously in certain instances, right?
Previously thought to just be the result of nerdy creative obsession. It's likely that a lot of those bizarre lyrics that we all just shrugged off were actually showing how this person thinks. At the time, I think most people predicted this to be the end of Kanye West's career. I mean, most famous people who crash down this hard don't make a substantial comeback. Now, looking back, that obviously didn't happen, but I think it's important to note that this is going to be a narrative shift. From The Life of Pablo onward, audiences receive Kanye's music with a certain amount of hesitancy. After the St. Pablo tour incidents, Kanye went dark for an entire year. No music, no announcements, no tweets, nothing, which was unusual for the celebrity.
Oh yeah, and I remember, I think his profile pictures on, you know, the various platforms, they were blacked out, right?
Who, at this point, had garnered a reputation for essentially being the old, senile grandpa who has no filter on Twitter. It wasn't until May of 2017 that word got out that Kanye was recording new music. This time, he leaked that he was recording in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, the middle of nowhere, with many different producers and artists shipped out there. Along with the announcement of a new Kanye West album, the public also got word of a new collaboration album between Kanye and Kid Cudi. And there was also the announcement of a life coaching book that was being written by Kanye as well. I'll just go ahead and spoil right now, that book never got released. More of it ended up on Twitter than on a page, as unfortunate as that is. But Ye and Kids See Ghosts were both released in 2018. Kids See Ghosts saw massive critical and wider audience acclaim. Ye, on the other hand, is the first album Kanye has released up until this point that wasn't immediately met with raving reviews. But we'll talk about that in just a second. For now, we need to talk about the events that happened around this album's release. In 2018,
that was that seven track album, right? I think I fucked with Ye.
Kanye spent some time working on his label Good Music again. This time he released albums for Nas, Teyana Taylor, and Pusha T. Pusha T's album, Daytona, was released in May of 2018, but attracted some controversy because of the album cover, which was a real photo of Whitney Houston's bathroom that Kanye allegedly paid $85,000 to license. As you can see, the photo is not necessarily flattering. Also in 2018, Kanye started an architecture firm called Yeezy Home, whose first project was a fully concrete housing concept. This never took off. 2018 was also the year that Kanye started to talk about the political activities of the country. On the single Ye vs. the People, the rapper T.I. and Kanye rap about Kanye's support for Donald Trump and the conservative side of the media. A song that is titled and inspired by the FX crime series American Crime Story, The People vs. O.J. Simpson. This means that Kanye officially compared himself to the famous criminal who abused the justice system to literally get away with murder, O.J. Simpson. Knowing what we know about the last few years of Kanye's life, I gotta say, I was a little nervous re-listening to this album, and I can't necessarily say that my anxieties weren't proven rational. The album is mostly about Kanye's mental state, his own perspective on his psyche, and his thoughts about various aspects of life and things he's experienced in a more detailed way than ever before. I Thought About Killing You is a song about Kanye's suicide.
Yeah. I remember these kind of titles, man.
Ideation and dealing with that emotion. He would later confirm this in a New York Times interview conducted at his place in Wyoming, saying that he always weighed suicide as an option. On No Mistakes, Kanye swaps back and forth between addressing disses from Canadian pedophile Drake and addressing the struggles of the last 12 months. But things just aren't quite what they seem on the surface. Ye suffers from a similar issue to Life of Pablo, with random self-indulgent lyrics scattered throughout the project. Other moments are made uncomfortable because of needless connections to celebrity culture, like on All Mine, where the entire second verse is Kanye name-dropping different celebrities just to serve the narrative of the song. And other songs are ruined once you learn the context of Kanye's actions. The sappy and emotional song Violent Crimes that closed out the album was revealed to not even have been written by Kanye at all. He only slightly modified 2 of the lyrics on the track. Like I said earlier, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy and 808s and Heartbreak managed to cover these illicit subjects, but did so with nuance and left room assumed to separate the art from the artist. But with these last three, Yeezus, The Life of Pablo, and Ye, Kanye leaves constant reminders as to how he was acting and his own ideas in the music, despite what a lot of people want to believe. Kanye's mental state is still genuinely deteriorating, instead of him playing a character as he once would have said. But that's still not the whole story of Ye. The first half of the Wyoming sessions in 2018 were spent writing and recording an album that was never released. Love Everyone was the planned name for the album that would eventually become.
Bro, if you think about it, bro, like this man tried everything, bro. Because yeah, when he was in Wyoming, wasn't that the time when he was even converting, right, into Christianity, doing these church services? Remember? Guy went from, you know, mental illness to, you know, family issues to marital issues, drama, you know, with the kids, and you feel me? Yeah, let's try the Christian thing, like let's try, you know what I'm saying, the religious thing, doing church services. Nah, it's not working. What else, nigga? Like, oh, like this is an example of a man who tried everything in front of your face, right, to prove that, yo, like, it's a big reality, it's a big universe, it's a big world, gotta try new things constantly, you know what I'm saying? Yo.
Ye, but for a while was a project that was less subtle.
Like, looking back at it, yo, it's eventful as fuck.
And more blatantly offensive than anything else Kanye would have made. The singles Lift Yourself and Ye vs. the People, the latter of which we already covered, were released when Love Everyone was the planned album. Lift Yourself is a very tongue-in-cheek diss track towards...
Dude, I don't even know these songs, bro. That's what I'm saying. Like, this nigga started just being super experimental with, like, music rollouts.
Drake, addressing the beef that they had at the time about a stolen flow and a stolen instrumental. But the rest of the leaked tracks on that album are now famous unreleased songs for just how over-the-top offensive they were. Namely, a song that was going to be titled DJ Khaled's Son, in which Kanye threw slurs at gay people and said other hateful things about women, Hispanic people, and trans people, as well as...
this is some news to me, man. I didn't know this.
Other groups. Other songs included lyrics supporting Donald Trump, denouncing the Me Too movement, and lyrics about rape. I should note that there is debate about how offensive this album was going to be, or if it was going to be offensive at all, but if you ask me, Kanye still had intentions of saying the most outrageous things possible to further whatever agenda he had. The obvious ocean of backlash that Kanye received after this interview led him to cancel Love Everyone and rework it into the album that would end up getting released, Ye. And just for good measure, at the end of 2018, Kanye ran up on stage at the end of his SNL.
There we go. Yo, there we go.